Spider-Man has gone homeless and has somehow mustered the power to defeat the housing market and reclaim his home. Spider-Man is sunken into crippling depression almost every single day, but after beating up Uncle Ben for hours on end, he's always able to rise to the occasion. Spider-Man has had his mind Freaky Friday numerous times, but through the power of having that dog in him, he's always been able to reclaim his body. Spider-Man has lost all his money due to his crippling gambling addiction, but with the help from Miles providing numerous galaxies, he'll one day get back up on his feet again, surely. But can Spider-Man muster enough strength and resolve to, let's say, beat Court? What power would he have to rustle up in his time of need? I guess we'll find out if you're still watching this video. See, because Spider-Man is charged with counts of murder in the second degree, assault with intent, assault on a police officer on multiple accounts, and obstruction of justice. Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, represents Spider-Man in the trial of his life, opposite of a man named Chris Dingus, representing the people of New York that are against Spidey. Dingus. After listing off several of the felonies Spider-Man has been charged with, the jury asks Matt if they are prepared to make a plea at this time, to which Matt says they are, and motions Spidey to say his plea, where Spidey awkwardly rises from his seat with an arm brace on to plea for himself that he is in fact not guilty. The jury poses the question of bail for the trial, where Dingus motions for no bail due to Spider-Man posing a substantial flight risk. Spidey looks at Matt to say that he can't quite fly, but Matt basically tells him to shut the fuck up because he isn't helping his case. Matt then speaks to the jury that his firm is prepared to post a $2 million bond to secure Spider-Man's presence at the trial. Dingus, a bit upset, yells at the jury that so long as Spider-Man wears his mask, they don't even know who they'd be posting a bond for. To which Matt says that his representation as both the bondsman and officer will make the bond sufficient enough. And in any case, Spider-Man is responsible for sending hundreds of criminals, both superpowered and otherwise, to prison. So to send Spider-Man to prison pending his trial would be tantamount to a death sentence. That's when a man by the name of Matthew Dode walks into the court announcing his presence to the jury for the case of Ryan Maxwell versus Spider-Man, aka John Doe. So I actually didn't know this until looking up the name Ryan Maxwell, is that he isn't some big villain that I wasn't aware of, but more or less just a random guy. See, only a week ago or so, on any other regular morning in New York, there were a couple of guys on the top of the Daily Bugle chopping it up about all sorts of random nonsense, until one of the letters they were setting up began to come loose, knocking one of the men off the side of the building, sending the guy hurtling down to the street below. But before he could splat on the ground, Spidey swung in just at the nick of time to save the guy. Only the web line Spidey used was attached to the platform they were working on, and because of all their added weight put together, it had caused the thing to snap. Thus, the letter U began to fall down from the side of the building. Looking at the face of their collective demise, Spidey would attempt to lighten the tension by saying that he refuses to let everyone be squashed by U, as he'd spray all his webbing at the letter in hopes it'd soften the landing and save everyone. And long story short, Spidey saved the day and the worker and anyone else around that could have been turned to paste. And that worker who fell off the building and had to go through quite the fright at the very start of his day, see, that guy was Ryan. And he basically figured that after Spider-Man saved him, he kind of figured that Spidey had something to do with all that destruction and chaos. So the very next day, Ryan met with a lawyer after sustaining a few injuries, and together with his lawyer, they successfully filed a John Doe complaint, making Ryan the first guy to ever sue Spider-Man. Now, this information doesn't really add anything to the story at hand or whatever, but it sparked my curiosity and I read all about it, so I felt like telling y'all about it too. Anyway, Spidey is having a rough go in court, and that's really saying something because compared to Daredevil, Daredevil's usually the guy to have it even worse than Spidey. I mean, only a couple years later, he actually ends up going to court for a murder case, because he accidentally killed somebody. But today, it just gets worse and worse. See, because Matthew Dode hands the jury a court order to unmask Spider-Man. Spidey is hella concerned after the court session, nervously and rapidly asking if they can really just unmask him like that. Matt, to calm Spidey down, tells him that without probable cause, they can't just take off his mask. But if the judge thinks that the court order is justified, he can be unmasked anyway. So Spidey yells at Matt to do something. Anything. He's taken on Doc Ock, Doctor Doom, he's fought Venom and Super Skrulls. He can't be taken down by a damn lawyer. And in his moment of weakness, Matt tells Spidey that he's had a plan for this very problem since the very beginning. Soon after, everyone returns to continue the trial where Dingus and Dode argue that there's no constitutional right to dress in spandex and wear a mask, where Matt retorts that there is a constitutional right to privacy, embodied in the 14th Amendment. However, with the Superhero Registration Act being a thing, it requires superheroes to disclose their identities to the law enforcement. enforcement, meaning no superhuman has a right to privacy when it comes to their identity. And if you do want that privacy, just be wary that you may have to make a deal with the devil to remove your marriage. But with Matt's secret weapon called the US versus Steve Rogers Act, it acts to nullify most of the Superhero Registration Act, which means it's an act that stops an act from acting on an act to unmask Spidey in simple terms. But to nullify all that shit, Dode goes, well, the privacy thing means nothing in my civil case, because if the defendant hit my client with his car, he'd have every right to run the defendant's plates to see who owns it. Same thing applies here. The whole courtroom goes silent and Matt simply says, he's right, to which the judge and Spidey are completely dumbfounded. So in the light of this realization, Matt requests a 24-hour recess to see if he can come up with something to preserve Spidey's identity. Spidey, a little concerned and unable to decipher what any of the legal speak means, asks Matt what they're gonna do, to which Matt tells Spidey to hang back while he goes out to find Spider-Man. 23 hours later, Matt arrives to court with a law book to give Spidey because if he's in the trial of his life, he might as well study up. Spidey, completely nervous, asks Matt what he has planned, but Matt just refuses to answer him, stating that he wouldn't want to spoil the surprise, because as soon as they'd enter the courtroom, dozens of Spider-Men would swing through the courtroom, all jumping, posing, crawling, and swinging, with Matt simply explaining to the judge that there was a whole variety of people who could have driven the metaphorical car. And just like in Dode's hit and run analogy, in order to meet his burden of proof, he has to prove who wore the costume on the day in question. But unmasking the defendant today would hold no evidentiary relevance at all. With Dode's request to unmask Spider-Man denied, most of the cases Spider-Man had been charged against with end up being dismissed as well. But that isn't to say Spidey is a free man, not until he is actually proven not guilty for his criminal trial, which is almost hopeless because everyone in New York thinks he's a criminal, thanks to the Daily Bugle. With that awful news, Spidey and Matt find themselves alone together where he's a bit disappointed about not being a free man, but he is curious who all those Spider-Men were, praying to God that they weren't like clones or something crazy because he's had problems with clones before. Where Matt tells Spidey that there have been times where he needed other heroes to pose as him so Matt and Daredevil could be seen in the same room together so not to reveal his secret identity. Matt just simply applied the same thing with Spidey. Luckily, Spidey is a great guy and numerous heroes answered the call to help him out, like the Ronin, the Patriot, Nightcrawler, Iron Fist, Black Cat, Shang-Chi, and Spider-Girl. Cool thing to mention that has absolutely no bearing on the story whatsoever, but Nightcrawler is sorta his own Spider-Sona now in comics, and I don't know about you, but it kinda goes hard as fuck. He's like one of my top 5 X-Men ever, and I think that's so fucking cool. Anyway, Spidey asks Matt how Iron Fist managed to get his web shooter after they confiscated his at Central Booking, where Matt says that apparently someone broke into the evidence locker last night. Shocker. With that, he tells Spidey he has no idea where it could have gone, tells Spidey Black Cat sends her regards, and that he'll send him the bill in a few days once this is all said and done. Where before leaving, he tells Spidey to read the book, as Spidey opens the law book to find the web shooter inside. Now, the story kind of just ends here. You never really know what happens next, as I searched all across several Spidey comics later, and nothing. So here's my canon ending. After Spider-Man admits he doesn't have the strength or the power to defeat the court, he simply breaks out, swings all the way to Washington, D.C. for some reason, where Barack Obama is going to be sworn in as president. Through the grapevine, he finds out a sinister villain is posing as Barack Obama, so Spidey asks what Obama's nickname was in varsity basketball, where the real Obama says Barry Obama, and the fake says Barasket Obalma, after which the fake is promptly punched in the face as it was the chameleon all along trying to become sworn into office. And Barack Obama's like, you know what, you're not so bad of a guy after all, and he fist bumps Spidey and he gives him immunity, and Spidey just swings off back to New York and he gets remarried to Mary Jane, and the story ends. I hope you guys like this story. I know that this is a bit of a random video, but I've been working on a few other videos that are taking a bit longer than I thought to finish, so I thought I'd just give y'all another little video before I release the special sauce. Find whatever meaning you can from that, and with that, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Check out my Twitter, and as always, I'll catch y'all on the flip side.
Hey,
Mullet-Man Nation.
sure to subscribe to my channels and check